In 1676, there broke out in the Old Dominion of Virginia a famous movement for right and justice. Let's learn more about this rebellion and its charismatic leader, Nathaniel Bacon.
The Great Rebellion in the Old Dominion. The years ending in 76 are remarkable in America as years of struggle against tyranny and strife for the right. We shall not soon forget the year 1776, when the famous rebellion of the colonies against Great Britain reached its climax in the Declaration of Independence. In 1676, a century before, there broke out in Virginia what was called the Great Rebellion, a famous movement for right and justice. It was brought about by the tyranny of Sir William Berkeley, the governor of the colony of Virginia, as that of 1776 was by the tyranny of George III, the King of England. It is the story of the first American rebellion that we are about to tell. Sir William had ruled over Virginia at intervals for many years. It was he who took old Opachicanu prisoner after the massacre of 1643. In 1676 he was again governor of the colony. He was a man of high temper and revengeful disposition, but for a long time he and the Virginians got along very well together, for the planters greatly liked the grand style in which he lived on his broad estate of Green Springs, with his many servants and rich silver plate, and costly entertainments and stately dignity. They lived much that way themselves, so far as their means let them, and were proud of their governor's grand display. But what they did not like was his arbitrary way of deciding every question in favor of England and against Virginia, and the tyranny with which he enforced every order of the king. Still less were they pleased with the fact that when the Indians in the mountain district began to attack the settlers, and put men, women, and children to death, the governor took no steps to punish the foe, and left the people to defend themselves in the best way they could. A feeling of panic like that of the older times of massacre ensued. The exposed families were forced to abandon their homes and seek places of refuge. Neighbors banded together for work in the field, and kept their arms close at hand. No man left his door without taking his musket. Even Jamestown was in danger, for the woodland stretched nearly to its dwellings, and the lurking Indians, stealing with noiseless tread through the forest shades, prowled from the mountains almost to the sea, like panthers in search of prey. At that time there was a man of great influence in Virginia, named Nathaniel Bacon. He was a newcomer who had been in America less than 3 years, but he had bought a large estate and had been made a member of the governor's council. He was a handsome man and a fine speaker, and these and other qualities made him very popular with the planters and the people. Bacon's plantation was near the falls of the James River, where the city of Richmond now stands. Here his overseer, to whom he was much attached, and one of his servants were killed by the Indians. Highly indignant at the outrage, Bacon made up his mind that something must be done. He called a meeting of the neighboring planters, and addressed them hotly on the delay of the governor in coming to their defense. He advised them to act for themselves, and asked if any of them were ready to march against the Indians, and whom they would choose as their leader. With a shout they declared that they were ready, and that he should lead. This was very much like taking the law into their own hands. If the governor would not act, they would. As a proper measure, however, Bacon sent to the governor and asked for a commission as captain of the force of planters. The governor received the demand in an angry way. It hurt his sense of dignity to find these men acting on their own account, and he refused to grant a commission or to countenance their action. He went so far as to issue a proclamation, in which he declared that anyone who did not return to their homes within a certain time would be held as rebels. This so scared the planters that the most of them went home, only 57 of them remaining with their chosen leader. With this small force Bacon marched into the wilderness, where he met and defeated a party of Indians, killing many of them and dispersing the remainder. Then he and his men returned home in triumph. By this time the autocratic old governor was in a high state of rage. He denounced Bacon and his men as rebels and traitors, and gathered a force to punish them. But when he found that the whole colony was on Bacon's side, he changed his tone. He had Bacon arrested, it is true, when he came to Jamestown as a member of the House of Burgesses, but this was only a matter of form, to save his dignity, and when the culprit went down on one knee and asked pardon of God, the king, and the governor, Berkeley was glad enough to get out of his difficulty by forgiving him. But for all this fine show of forgiveness, Bacon did not trust the old tyrant, and soon slipped quietly out of Jamestown and made his way home. He was right. The governor was making plans to seize him and hold him prisoner. He had issued secret orders, and Bacon had got away in good time. Very soon he was back again, this time at the head of 400 planters. As they marched on, others joined them, and when they came into the old town and drew up on the State House green, there were 600 of them, horse and foot. The sight of this rebel band threw old Berkeley into a towering rage. He rushed out from the State House at the head of his council, and tearing open his ruffled shirt, cried out in a furious tone, "Here! Shoot me! 'Fore God, fair mark! Shoot!" "No," said Bacon. "May it please your honor, we will not hurt a hair of your head, nor of any other man's. We are come for a commission to save our lives from the Indians, which you have so often promised. And now we will have it before we go." Both men were in a violent rage, walking up and down, and gesticulating like men distracted. Soon Sir William withdrew with his council to the office in the State House. Bacon followed, his hand now touching his hat in deference, now his sword hilt, as anger rose in his heart. Some of his men appeared at a window of the room with their guns cocked and ready, crying out, "We will have it! We will have it!" This continued till one of the burgesses came to the window and waved his handkerchief, calling out, "You shall have it! You shall have it!" Hearing this, the men drew back, and rested their guns on the ground, and Bacon left the chamber and joined them. The matter ended in Bacon's getting his commission as general and commander-in-chief, while an act was passed by the legislature justifying him in all he had done, and a letter to the same effect was written to the king and signed by the governor, council, and assembly. Bacon had won in all he demanded. His triumph was only temporary. While he was invading the country of the Pamunkey Indians, killing many of them and destroying their towns, Berkeley repudiated all he had done. He proclaimed Bacon a rebel and traitor, and issued a summons for the train bands to the number of 1,200 men, bidding them pursue and put down Bacon the rebel. The men assembled, but when they heard for what they were wanted, they broke out into a shout of "Bacon! Bacon! Bacon!" and dispersed again, leaving the old tyrant and his attendants alone. News of these events quickly reached Bacon and his men in the field. He at once turned and marched back. "While I am hunting wolves which are destroying innocent lambs," he exclaimed indignantly, "here are the governor and his men after me like hounds in full cry. I am like one between two millstones, which will grind me to powder if I do not look to it." As he came near Jamestown, the governor fled, crossing Chesapeake Bay to Accomac, and leaving Bacon in full possession. A new House of Burgesses was called into session, and Bacon's men pledged themselves not to lay down their arms. Sir William had sent to England for soldiers, they said, and they would stand ready to fight these soldiers, as they had fought the governor. A paper to this effect was drawn up and signed, dated August, 1676. It was the first American Declaration of Independence. The tide of the rebellion was now in full flow. The movement against the Indians had, by the unwarranted behavior of the governor, been converted into a civil war, nearly the whole colony supporting Bacon and demanding that the tyrant governor should be deposed. But while this was going on, the Indians took to the war-path again, and Bacon at once marched against them, leaving Sir William to his own devices. His first movement was against the Appomattox tribe, which dwelt on the river of the same name, where Petersburg now stands. Taking them by surprise, he burned their town, killed many of them, and dispersed the remainder. Then he marched south and attacked other tribes, driving them before him and punishing them so severely as quite to cure them of all desire to meddle with the whites. From that time forward, eastern Virginia was free from Indian troubles, and Bacon was looked upon as the deliverer of the colony. But lack of provisions forced him to return and disband his forces, only a few men remaining with him. He soon learned that he had a worse enemy than the Indians to fight at home.
I'm Mark Vinette, and I hope you're enjoying the ride.